Hi. Okay, so I'm going to explain number 3 on section 101 to 102. So we have that the transformation I minus z over I plus z maps the um, upper half plane onto the disk, the open disk, and the boundary of the half plane, so that's the real axis, onto the boundary of the disk. So part A says, by finding the inverse of the above transformation, show that the transformation 1 minus z over 1 plus I times 1 minus z over 1 plus z maps the closed disk, closed unit disk, onto the half plane, um, upper half plane, including the real axis. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. So what you do is you write the transformation in the form az plus b over cz plus d, and from there we know that the formula is, so you get a equals -1, b equals I, c equals 1, d equals I, and we have the formula for the inverse of that is just negative dw plus b over cw minus a. So the so writing z instead of w as the input variable, it's just the inverse is just I times 1 minus z over 1 plus z. So that's what they were asking about in the problem. So since under the original transformation, the pre-image, no. Yes. So since under the original transformation, the pre-image of the closed unit disk is the upper half plane, including the real axis, then the image of the closed unit disk under the inverse transformation is just the upper half plane, including the real axis. Okay, and then part B says that show that the transformation w equals z minus 2 over 2, so z minus 2 all over 2, can be written as capital Z equals lowercase z minus 1, capital W equals I times 1 minus capital Z over 1 plus capital Z, and then lowercase w equals I times uppercase W. So this is just computation, so if you just substitute lowercase w equals I times uppercase W, substitute in uppercase W, and then substitute in z minus 1 for uppercase Z, then you just get z minus 2 over 2. And then, oh yeah, okay, so if you think about the disk, lowercase z minus 1, or it's basically the disk centered at 1 with radius 1, so it's written as modulus of z minus 1 must be less than or equal to 1. So since capital Z just shifts anything to the left, the circle of radius 1 centered at 1 will now be the circle set of radius 1 centered, or disk of radius 1 centered at 0. So that's nice because our next transformation is just the one we talked about. So since this is a closed disk, it'll just transform that closed disk into the upper half plane plus the real axis, just as we talked about. And then finally, the last transformation is just I times capital W. So the transformation I times Z just rotates Z by pi over 2. So we have this upper half plane including the real axis, and if we rotate it by pi over 2, it rotates like that. So then we're talking about the left half plane. So that's the condition would be that the real part of lowercase w must be less than or equal to 0.